move on down to Hurricane Helene recovery update. Highway Department, you're up first.
Up.
Yep. You're on the hot seat, man.
We're selling firewood. We're trying to do the brush and tree debris removal in phases. First phase we started and almost complete. That's just knocking the roads out, getting people to travel, emergency vehicles, school buses or whatever. We've got the roads open. Second phase, we're gonna go back, cut debris, trees, whatever, back past the ditch line so we can get water flowing. Third phase, we're gonna go back and clean the right of way. So on the first phase, we only hauled what we had to. We pushed it aside, find a wide spot, leave it there, whatever. We've been picking that up. And this is gonna floor your commissioners, but in your budget committee, I'm gonna ask for about 10 people. Cause TEMA and FEMA are reimbursing us right now, 100%. 30 days, you have to ask for extension and they can drop it down percentage-wise on the reimbursement. So we can either bite the bullet and hire people before we can get it cleaned up quicker, or I can do it as I have people and it'd be on the county's budget, so be prepared. I'm gonna ask for some temporary workers.
And this would just be while we're getting the reimbursement, is that
Right.
correct?
I'm guessing a couple months. After I get it cleaned up on the right of way, I'm gonna take the chipper and the crew through and get all the smaller stuff and just chip it. We won't have to haul it and burn it. So, and we worked a lot of overtime. Probably the first 2 weeks, we worked first weekend and then some longer hours, but we, thanks to the fire departments and the sheriff's department, everybody that had a chainsaw, the school was out just a week. They probably, if they wasn't on their break, they could have went back in a week. So. But it's been challenging. Been doing this for over 30 years, and that's the worst road blockage that I've seen. About every road in Hawkins County had trees down. And I'm sure the rescue squad and anybody that had to travel back me up on it, especially Hawkins and Electric. But we got a plan and we're working with FEMA and TEMA. And it's document. If it ain't on paper, we didn't do it. So there's no chance to get any reimbursement. So. Anybody got any questions?
What's your feeling about being able to hire temporary people?
Well, if I had the money, finding the people would be the next thing.
I think that was my main thing was finding people.
Right.
So,
I'm getting more applications now, so stuff is slowing down.
okay.
And tell all your constituents the phases that we're going through. It may not look like we're doing anything, but we're just doing it a little at a time. But it'll take, if I don't get help, it's gonna take probably to this time next year to get it back like it was before the storm came. Cause I gotta pull my people off, just have one crew working on cleanup, cause I got roads to pave and potholes patched and whatever, just the normal stuff, so. I'll have a grapple truck running, and maybe a skid steer going in and cleaning up. Where we shut down the whole highway department, the mowers and everything on the first couple of weeks. And had to go rummage up chainsaws, and some of the guys brought theirs from home and whatever, so to be able to run all the crews that we was running. So when they call you and start wanting their right of ways cleaned up sooner, that would be the last thing, the right of ways. When we get the ditches open, we'll start cleaning it all the way back as far as we own. And I've had people call and saying they're gonna drag their stuff out of their fields and put it on the right of way. And I told them I'd have to talk to Mr. Lawson on that, if that we wasn't disposing for the whole county, it's just what's on the right of way. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Is that reimbursement 100%?
Until you start making requests for more time, right now it's 100%. First 30 days, then you have to ask for extension. Then it's left up to them how much reimbursement they give you. Got that one right, Jamie? Pretty much so.
As we know it now. And the opportunity.
EMA,
First of all, we're running on fumes. So we've been on the ground since this began, up to 14 days, some of this, so, and it continues and it's not slowing down. First thing we have to remember is all these agencies are all hazard departments. This is a specific hazard that should definitely get the attention of all of us. I recommend this committee meets after we're able to have time for an after-action report to address every issue that's been identified during this. We had shortcomings. We had people step up to take care of things and that we could maybe plan for a little better next time. Like Danny was saying, they ran into issues even with the number of chainsaws that were available. So I feel like we need to do that at some point. We're obviously still in the response early recovery phase of this as far as all the agencies, so we would need time to prepare that. When Helene was in the Gulf of Mexico, we knew by the warnings. We had a large event coming for the Carolinas and for Tennessee. We didn't know exactly where it was going to stall out at, but all the warnings were in place that we were going to have a historic event with this. We started pushing out emails the day before the impact of the most precise information we could get out to the responders. And we pushed out 5 of those updates total. I think all the commission was on those as well. Just to kind of be prepared for it and to give everybody an update on where we were at. We started getting initial impacts about 6 a.m. that morning. We started spooling up emergency management resources about 8:30 to come out and start assisting with it. But 9:05 we activated our EOC, which had never been done before. Lynn, if you'd like to speak on the specific volume at that time of the initial hit.
Yeah, it's in this report.
Okay. Lynn will go over that, but just unprecedented numbers of calls for service came through our 911 center at that point. During the next few hours, we ran into issue after issue. We had an ambulance that took several hours, is that correct? To get to a patient. We were putting in requests for the military through my office for heavy equipment, large saws, anything we could get. Those requests were being pushed through TEMA into the Department of Military. Every county was doing the same thing at the same time. So something else to be learned from this is in the initial phases, you're on your own for quite some time until resources are able to be spun up. They were able to finally get TDOT and I think some forestry assets spun up for that situation, but it took hours to get that roadway cleared up. It was 9, 10 o'clock that night, and one of those major state roads was still closed because of it. They were able to get the ambulance around a back way. This storm, as bad as it was, hit us at perfect timing. If this storm had been at 3 a.m. in the morning, if this storm had been at 5 o'clock in the evening, we would have had a different outcome. All of our people are fresh. 911 responders, everything is fresh shifts coming on everywhere. And we had resources available, like at the highway department, of like the secretaries and stuff processing these calls, as 911 was giving them those calls by having that staff there. Quickly, we knew we had an electrical grid issue with just the number of outages. We were getting over 30,000 residents countywide lost power. Again, it was a blessing. Temperatures were perfect, and we didn't run into a huge sheltering issue with this. Holston's impact is multi-million. We're working with them on that. Hawkins County has got a presidential declaration for PA and IA. PA will take care of the electrical infrastructure. IA is for the homeowners. It's first time.
Can you explain what that is?
It's first time that's ever happened. PA is any public infrastructure, roads, road clearing, anything owned by government, basically, that falls within that category. That's what it's reimbursed from. IA is individual assistance for homeowners, renters, anyone impacted by those type storms. Our second hardest hit department was obviously the highway department that Danny's talked to you about. The economic impact of the highway department and the public safety is still being calculated and estimated. I'm estimating there's probably 300 homes in the county that's impacted to some degree, whether that be a shingle knocked off. We know just in Farm Bureau there's about 150 claims. We've only processed 10 of what's probably the worst through our office. The worst damage we've seen is some have 10, 11 broken trusses in the roof. They're going through their insurance company and through FEMA for that. Those houses that we've assessed, like I say, are anywhere from what we call affected to minor damages, and then those worst ones are the ones that I was telling you about. There's one tree that we come across in Churchill. The root diameter on that tree is probably about 12 feet. I mean, these trees were massive that came down. We had several first responders nearly hurt and killed during this, including utilities. It was very dangerous in the first hours of this. So, where we're under that presidential declaration, on the PA side of it, it will take 2 years typically to get money reimbursed. It could take up to 6 to 7 years with what some of our neighboring counties have been impacted by during the 2011 tornadoes. I know it was 2017 when they got some of that money back. So we're just going off of history, and we hope this is a better experience. I know our 911 deployments have typically been about 2 years, haven't they, on the refi? 2 years. So that's on the PA side of it, and I will go ahead and start down some of the path of that. It's presidentially declared disaster. FEMA is on the ground in Hawkins County today. Today's the first day that they're actually going out visiting faith-based organizations, supermarkets, anywhere they can push this information out for assistance. To your constituents, there is a lot of benefits available if they're impacted in any way from this assistance on this green flyer. A lot of stuff that I didn't even realize was reimbursable. A lot of stuff that their typical insurance wouldn't cover. So everyone you know that has any damage, have them fill that out in one of the forms on there. I've never seen money flow like, potential money flow like what's happening during this. Post 9/11, it was 2005 era that money started flowing. COVID, it was a couple months. This has been a couple of weeks. There's $100 million released out of the governor's office. That's a grant style program. My understanding that there will be terms to pay that back, and we've not had time to assess where that lands and what those terms are yet. A large chunk of that goes to water infrastructure and the larger impacted counties, but there is potential money there for us as well. There's $1 million that we've been contacted by First Tennessee Development District that's earmarked for Hawkins County residents. And there's about $200,000 with a local organization that's reached out to us. I'll be 100% honest, we're having a hard time just juggling what all's going on right now. There's going to be multiple centers that have to be opened up in the county as part of this. The first is the Disaster Survivor Center, which will be in this room, and that will be on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week. There will be people here on staff that can sign residents up for this assistance on an individual basis. Those people say the number one problem is people don't apply because they don't realize what they are eligible for, and they help with that process of telling each applicant what they're eligible for. And they gave an example of having an appliance bad, they may not connect that's due to the power outage, and when it came back on it surged and stuff like that. They help them out with that style assistance.
What was the dates on those again,
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week. And that will be from 9 until 4 in this room.
And this office will be open here on Saturday?
It will, with my staff. Well, we're also being told by the federal government we have to open a disaster recovery center. I've reached out to state resources to try to get the National Guard Armory for that. We've still not got an answer back on that. That center could potentially have to be open for up to 6 days. That's where your SBA loans, all of those resources would be pushed out. We push all this info out by social media, so as this changes, watch our social media, because that's the easiest way for us to spread the word and through a mass notification. Speaking of our mass notification rave, I feel like there is a very good chance that we've saved lives with the data we pushed out through that system. Especially in the early stages when we saw first responders getting in danger to try to keep the public away. We push those out through iPulse, which activates everyone's cell phone, and through Rave, which is our local system. You could step outside the center. Once it calmed down, you only see 2 or 3 cars on 11W. The public really did a good job of heeding the warning, sheltering in place. Another hard decision had to be made in the beginning in the Emergency Operations Center and the 911 Center was to push out a message to shelter in place. And we're in a flood event. They're telling everybody else to evacuate to high ground, but we didn't have that style of damage here. We were able to push that out. In our county, the shelter in place was what we deemed most appropriate because of the damage we were seeing on the ground. We would have obviously changed that if we'd seen that change in the public. The PA side of this, as Danny said, the documentation. All of that has to be entered into the computer. That's going to be a massive workload on the offices that have to do this, like the highway department and stuff on these reimbursements. So as we go into the weeks and months of this, there's going to be an excessive workload on all those offices to be prepared for that. Something we learned from a lot of these disasters, something I've seen, we've mentioned floodplain planning in here for years. A lot of these structures that were washed out in other counties, the mayors and that stuff are saying that a lot of it's floodplain issues. We seriously need to look at sourcing our floodplain management out to a qualified company and to visit what we have agreed to in the past. I anticipate TVA will be asking for that to be addressed at some point. Is there any other questions you've got as far as emergency management?
Jamie, was there a certain area of the county that was probably hit worse than, or was it just countywide?
It was basically north of 11W. It was all over the county, but the hardest hit areas were north of 11W and Cherokee. we were talking about right-of-way clearance, and I just want you to know this because your phone will start ringing about this. We do not have the staff to clear private property, as Danny said, and he's chose not to do that. These people would have the option to put that in the right of way, but we have to manage it when that is chose to be done. The only way I know you could do that is if you contract that, because like Danny said, he doesn't have the staff for that. That's when you get into a huge reimbursement issue and making sure things have been done correctly and stuff like that. But we're getting calls daily of people with brush on private property of how we deal with this. We've also had those calls in the lake. There was a large area of logs in the lake. Some of that's dissipated, some of that they've been able to get up on the bank. As Danny said, we're required, once this becomes a presidential declaration, that every T has to be crossed and every I has to be dotted on the federal level with how we dispose of this debris as well. And that's still being assessed on exactly what's going to have to be done with that, especially in the harder hit areas. Lots of mutual aid was processed through my office for these counties that were impacted the hardest. As far as emergency management, we weren't able to go out of the county very much. I think we've been out of the county about 3 times, both of them just short stints, but I know all these agencies have been out there on mutual aid to help those heavier impacted counties. I'm just going to warn you, as part of this after action, we have got to spool my department up to where we have 24/7, 365 resources to be able to hit the ground. A dam in TVA's history, to my knowledge, had never hit a code red as far as one of these major dams. I'd always looked at some of that pre-planning as that would be a terroristic act or something like that, but we house those maps in my office. They're not available for public view, but the damages we see in these other counties can happen here to the scale that the Holston is capable of flooding. Obviously, those mountain counties are always going to have it worse, but there's streams up there that's typically 5-6 foot wide that was 100 feet wide coming down those mountains. And we were hit hard. That's another thing. Don't you see that on TV and don't think we've been hit hard. This is the largest event I've ever seen in the county. Like Danny was saying, and Holston's employees that have been on hurricane deployments, they say this is worse than anything they've dealt with in those deployments as well. But we're going to have to figure out staffing in my office. We're going to bust out, all our part-time is busting out over 30 hours, which will be an audit finding if we continue to do that. And then my comp time is, we'll see where it stops. Any questions? Okay.
E911 and EMS and whoever wants to extra squad and
Do you have one for me, Leanne?
There should be enough there, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a very high-level overview of the 911 operations during the Hurricane Helene. I'm hoping we can cover more in after action, but this is just basically to hit the high spots. On the first page, the weather calls really started for Hawkins County a little after midnight on the 26th, but the bulk of those started around 6 a.m. on the 27th, and we were really getting hit hard around 8 a.m. Around 8:23 a.m., the 911 center went on generator power, and I will give a huge thanks to the commission and our board of directors, especially with the updates that we've done over the couple of years. And if we hadn't done those updates, especially with our console numbers and our number of radio positions that we have, this event would not been possible for us. It would have completely overwhelmed us. And honestly, I don't know what we would have done. At 8:23, we went on generator power, and we stayed on generator power for probably about 30 hours. We don't know the exact time that cut off. At 9:13, the EOC was activated. We called in 4 additional staff members. We increased from 4 to 6 dispatch positions, and we assigned 2 of those personnel to strictly the Emergency Operations Center. At 9:26, we enacted what we refer to as an emergency rule, and that's basically we stop all non-essential services, and we ask all the other response agencies to do the same, only respond to emergency calls at the time until the 911 center and EMA could assess actually what was going on in the county. Of course, all of those calls included just your severe weather incidents, utility damage, welfare checks, utility damage, road closures, all of your normal weather-related activities. And on the 27th, we maintained 6 dispatch positions until midnight, and then we transferred back to our normal operations. The morning of the 28th, we called in 5 additional personnel. One of those was assigned to the EOC. And again, we maintained 6 dispatch positions until 6 p.m. that night. And then we transferred back again to normal operations. As you can see on page 5, our normal daily call volume, phone call volume is around 200 and I think this shows about 225 calls. On the 27th, we answered over 820 phone calls. There was about 16 911 calls that were abandoned. We always call those back or attempt to make contact with them. And there was a little over 50 non-emergency calls that were abandoned. And that just means that they disconnected before we answered the phone or they lost service. And as you can see, those phone calls and our calls for service that we dispatched remained at an all-time high until October the 2nd. And then we basically just went back to normal call volume at that time. On the 27th, we dispatched over 296 calls for service, and our monthly average was about 118 per day. The 27th was a 263% increase in phone call volume. This was a historical high for 911. The only other time that I've been involved with it that we had anything higher was the volunteer high school hoax. And we run around 80 calls per hour during that time, and the phone system that we had during that time actually failed. This phone system maintained and held up all the phone calls that we received. Page 7, as you'll see, about 6 a.m., 6 a.m., our calls per hour started picking up. And at 9 a.m., our 6 dispatchers were answering 126 calls per hour. Even with having an all-time high, between the 27th and October the 2nd, as you can see on page 8, the percent of 911 calls answered, we maintained national average of answering 95% of those within 10 seconds or less. Our non-emergency phone calls, the lowest we dropped on those was looks like it was on the 2nd, but there's no national average for non-emergency phone calls. Even throughout the entire event, up to 99% of those were answered within 40 seconds or less. We sent our first mass notification, or what we call Hawkins alert, on the 27th at 10:28, and that was the shelter in place. And Director Miller has actually already mentioned it. It was kind of an eerie feeling. Once that message went out, you could walk outside and it was complete silence. If you've ever been at the 911 center, it's usually not silent. You can always hear that road traffic. And I think this shelter in place message really saved a lot. Between 9/27 and October the 2nd, we successfully sent out 57,643 notifications to the citizens. That does not include the iPaws or RSS feeds, Facebook, Twitter, or Smart 911 app. We don't have numbers on those. iPaws doesn't capture that number, but iPaws is the system that sends out Amber Alerts, so you can just imagine how many people we targeted in the county with a cellular device when we sent those out.
Just to interject there, some more information on that. We were the first one that the state started picking up those iPhones from as well. Those were picked up by the state EOC and started going across state channels. It wouldn't have happened as bad. Great system.
Our 911 center is also part of the Telecommunicator Emergency Response Task Force for Tennessee. On the 27th, about 5 p.m., we received a request for a rapid response to Carter County 911 for operational support. And between the 27th to the 30th, we supported their 911 center with 7 employees assigned to call taking. And that's all I have. The rest of it is just pictures of the mobile PSAP that we purchased, just to give you a quick view of it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but it's pretty impressive, just looking at your call volume and the number of calls you all received and the percent answered. Nothing was below 97%. 3 of them are 100% answered calls.
Yes, sir.
That's it's pretty impressive. And I think everybody at your department needs to be extremely proud of the job they did and what it took to go through and what our region experienced. So.
I'll make sure they know. On the 27th, the 820 phone calls, that does not include the calls that were made in the EOC. We don't have a way of capturing that number, so I would estimate probably, if I was just guessing, an additional 200 on top of that 800 that was made, either incoming or outgoing.
Something else, speaking on the EOC 911 staff and how we had to make this work. As far as the EOC, we opened with what ESF we needed. We had Holston Electric in the room, rescue, EMA, had EMS remote, law remote, and this is not anything negative toward the highway department, but the highway department's phones were ringing as much at the office as ours probably was as well. So Lynn spun up a dispatcher just to be the person relaying those calls from our EOC to the highway department, which typically wouldn't be 911's function, but they stepped up to the plate, dedicated a dispatcher just for that. And like I say, we were still fortunate that it was between 8 and 4 on a Friday. So as far as having people at the highway department to answer. But you know, we're very grateful that 911 stepped up to the plate with some of those functions that weren't necessarily their responsibility to help.
All working together.
Yeah.
EMS, rescue squad, we're one jump in front.
Mine's easy.
Like I said, in that report that I distributed there earlier, there's a breakdown of our response to Helene. Like Director Campbell was saying, about 8:30, 9 o'clock was when we started seeing an uptick of calls for service. At that time, we started making phone calls, calling staff in because we were running out of trucks. About 4:30 or so, our call volume started slowing back down to about normal a little bit. That is when we received notification that Carter County was requesting assistance to evacuate a hospital out there. We were able to staff 3 ambulances to send to Carter County for that evacuation. Continuing on into the next day, Greene County was the next county that requested assistance. We were fortunate enough to be able to send 6 ambulances that day to evacuate Greenville East Community Hospital, as well as maintaining full staffing here in our county as well. The following day, we went back to Greene County to assist them with 2 ambulances that day to evacuate a nursing home. We were very fortunate that we was able to provide this assistance to the surrounding counties. Normally, we've never been able in a position to help someone else, but our employees stepped up tremendously and come in to assist us to help our neighboring counties. So I'm very proud of our staff. We just recently, this past Monday, or the Monday before, I'm not sure really what day it is, but we assisted in transporting patients back to the nursing home in Greene County. They were requesting some assistance for the mobile hospital in Unicoi County, but I believe they were able to cover that with the strike team and some other agencies that were more outside of our region to cover that area, so it didn't exhaust our resources within our region. But like I said, I'm very proud of our service for being able to help and for the response that they've done, and the assistance that we receive from every agency in the county, from rescue to fire to highway department, Holston Electric, anybody. Like Jamie did, or Director Miller did state there was one call that had a very extended response time. Luckily, it was not a high acuity patient. Every road that we tried to gain access through was blocked by trees that was 3 foot, 4 foot in diameter, or wrapped up in power lines that, Holston Electric just didn't have the personnel to get out to secure the power on those trees. So, like I said, that was the longest delay that we did have, was that one in particular. But everything turned out positive there, so no negative outcomes from that. And that's all I have for Helene.
I told Jamie when we were at the EOC Friday, I said I didn't realize after my first 24 hours as taking over captain, he swore us in that I'd be sitting in the EOC doing this stuff. So, but it all worked out. Churchill Rescue Squad reached out to me to see if we would represent them as well at the EOC, so we did that. And a few decisions that we made there as far as getting help for EMS. They wanted a unit to go when they got a call, that way if there was trees down, so we elected to send the fire department first to those, and then rescue responded secondary if needed, or took care of other medical calls, so that worked out great. So I believe that we were there till about 6 Friday or so at the EOC.
Yeah, I don't leave until about 11 that night, but I did leave about 6 and come back.
Yeah, so I reached out to the Region 1 Vice President for Tennessee Association of Rescue Squads to say, hey, does anybody need help? And he said, no, we're good. So we all went home. About 20 minutes later, he called back and he said, send everything you can to Greene County. So we sent about, how many that first night, Jeff? About 11?
Yeah.
11 people, a crash truck, a Suburban, and 2 boats. And then Churchill reached out and they sent a team of, how many did you guys have?
I think it was 5.
Yeah, so they come. So Greene County was just overwhelmed. And so we helped them with running calls, doing stuff, general calls plus stuff related to the hurricane. So we maintained staffing through Sunday night over there, and also took care of our stuff back home here. And so we helped them, like I said, with the general calls, and then on Sunday it kind of slowed down a little bit. So we helped them with some after the incident search, if you will, checking houses and whatnot. And then Monday they called us back. All the boats that they have in Greene County they have prop motors on them. Well, the river was full of trash and debris, and so they needed boats with prop motors on it. So we sent 2 more boats back over there. You can see a picture in that flyer. They actually had to get a bulldozer and cut a boat ramp, if you will, down to the Nolichucky and stay hooked to the truck with the boats to back them down in the water. And then we helped the utility company get that line across the Nolichucky back to the other side over there. So we were over there Monday, and I think Churchill, they'll speak on theirs, but they were over there later that week. But so Like I said, we were able to stay from Friday through Sunday night and then send another team back over there Monday, and we're able to also maintain our normal stuff here in Hawkins County. So like Director Miller and Merle both said, you know, and all of our people are volunteer, and they, you know, eventually had to tell them to go home and rest. But I just appreciate them stepping up and being away from their families and to help in Hawkins County as well as in Greene County. So I appreciate them. Any questions on that for us for our response to that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add, Churchill?
Just kind of piggybacking off what Corey said, the first day that we had issues here, we ended up sending out 3 apparatus, all medically staffed. Those apparatus went to various different locations, Carter's Valley, that kind of area, and worked on part of the tree removal. Highway department obviously extremely inundated there. So we worked to try to clear some of that tree up for them, and also to allow you know, various apparatus, EMS, fire, to be able to go through as well. That night, later on, we had the request to come in through Greene County. We sent a swift water team over there with 5 personnel. We ended up in Greene County for 5 operational periods, and we're very fortunate enough to be able to provide assistance there. And they were very thankful for that. During this process, we identified some needs that we're going to try to address, but that's something that we'll bring up later for the commission. Any questions?
Any other unit want to add anything to the hurricane response? Corey, you know if the sheriff department has anything to add, or?
I don't. I know that they were cutting some trees. They had some of the work crews out cutting some trees. I know they were doing some stuff down here in the lower part of the county, and then I think they might have went to Carter's Valley. I don't know. Daniel, do you?
It went just wherever their cruisers was,
Yeah.
chainsaw and workers with them.
I think it was an effort from every angle that made what happened possible here in Hawkins County from everybody.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, or you can move on next to the radio.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I got one more link thing. It's a question for Director Miller. Director Miller, when we did the budget, you said it to us, you know, basically with the increase of the COVID workload that your office was under, some things like that, that one of your biggest fears was something was going to get missed.
Correct.
Now we just added a natural disaster onto your office. In addition to that, working with FEMA, TEMA, all of these agencies, and just from the conversations today, it sounds like this is going to be a multi-year workload project. Would that be fair to say?
Yep, that's correct.
And then, based on kind of your last comments, as we're wrapping up there, we're talking about, you know, the audit finding with the workload. The question I have for you is, what do you need, actual item do you need from this committee in regards of how we can help address that situation? Because it doesn't sound like it's going to be getting any better for your office and only getting worse. And so I'm going to shut up and let you talk about what do you need from us to kind of action that?
Okay. First of all, we asked for that prior to a presidential declared disaster. I mean, with no vision that this was coming. We still have that need in our office, and for another full-time person. Also, if we continue this radio program to the degree we are, the closest county to us is, that we look at as far as population and workload is Carter, and they have 2 EMA and then 1 that just deals with the radio side of it. In my office, if we did that, I would cross-train all of those to be available for response for that 24/7, 365 coverage that we were talking about. I've looked at this now, looking back on this. In the event of a code red dam situation, you've got 20 minutes. Whoever answers that phone better be capable of making a decision. That also comes into where you pay those people out on the scale to get those quality people that are able to answer that question under fire. So as far as the way I would pitch that back out, I don't know if we can do that out of order, but I'd pitch the same solution back out there now for the initial 1 person full-time. There's no way I can give up part-time money right now. My people I have part-time is the only people I've staffed at all. We can't cut my legs out from under me. if we continue this radio situation, and we're getting ready to go into, and you'll see this, tacking's coming. Within 10 years, I feel like we're gonna be on this impact area. There were only a few counties that were on tack, and I think that'll even push it more. I'll keep that report for later, but just keep that in mind when we're talking about this. But we initially asked for one, but especially if we continue the radio situation, I could justify 2 full-time. How the radio system held during this, I didn't bring it up because we were able to fix it. We were able to fix it under fire. Not too big of an issue. We lost Short Mountain during that. If I'm in the EOC making these decisions, obviously can't be on Short Mountain at the same time. It was a power interruption. All it took for the other 2 sites to go down was the power to flicker, and we had trees fall left and right. Thank goodness Bays Mountain and Town Knob did not lose power. If that had happened, I would have had to have 3 people on all 3 mountaintops to get that system back up. So we were very fortunate there. Something we've discovered post-disaster, there's $6,000 in the budget typically that I go to in a disaster for initial equipment. We went to that money this time for handheld GPSs because we were in areas with no pavement and we needed to know if we had to find a way out. We needed some handheld GPSs. When I went to that, I discovered that our funding was cut $900 in that line this year because it hit in line 499. I had no idea that was like that until we found it. We didn't have a negative impact from that, but that tells you the workload in my office. I hadn't even noticed in the budget that line had been cut. We just hadn't had time to look at it. I'll take any questions anybody's got for that.
Well, as far as the funding, I'm sorry. As far as the funding, I mean, none of us could have guessed that we'd be having a hurricane.
No.
Literally, I mean, we didn't have hurricane warning, probably should have had hurricane warnings up here.
Yeah.
Given the sheer magnitude of the storm. There's no way we can prepare for that. I don't like cutting funding to emergency services.
Yeah.
I think that's just, a situation like this, it's just waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can do a better job at next budget season, making sure that doesn't happen and we leave what need to be left in there.
What happened on that particular funding, I didn't realize it had been an object line 790, which did not get cut. It had been moved in that budget to object line 499, and I just didn't catch it.
I guess as far as the personnel, does anybody on this committee want to take action, make a motion to refer to a budget committee?
So the question I have, I guess, I don't know if Jason or Robbie would be the best to answer this, or y'all pitch in. So these 10 personnel we're needing at the highway department, I'm sure he's needing now. We have these opportunities, we have this potential funding that we're not even able to really process correctly. So some of this we need done as rapidly as possible if we're going to make a decision. Not trying to rush anybody into a decision or anything like that, but our workload is now. So yesterday I come in 8:30. I think when I come in, left about 6. Went home, took care of some things at home. Clocked back in for an hour on the computer doing this radio stuff. Was at a evacuation of a apartment complex last night for 2 hours. That's the thing we also have to remember. Our normal workload is still continuing. Our citizens have to be protected and needs addressed in our normal workload as well. That's completely been abandoned for the last, since before impact.
Jason, I don't know, do we need a recommendation from this committee for whether the need to go to personnel and then to the budget? Or?
I mean, the committee, as a consulting committee, can make any recommendation they want to. And then if you want to do that, you would probably need to go through personnel also, but that doesn't mean it necessarily has to.
Yeah.
It could come from this committee and go directly to budget, I would think. But let us be mindful too, and Mr. Chairman, I'm probably going to deviate a little, but I won't much. you know, we have needs in this county that reared their ugly head as a result of a disaster. As you said, Mr. Chairman, we could not have seen this storm coming. During budget season, however, it seems that we know that we have needs that are there, and it's kind of like we hold our breath hoping that disasters don't happen. And we, you know, as a budget chair, I will never lead the committee to spend money that they're not willing to either cut from one place or generate revenue in another. We have to get our head together to understand that if we are going to allocate money, we have to find out where that money's coming from. And while no one wanted to vote for the tax increase, there's not one single one of us that voted for that property tax increase this year that was jumping up and down to make it happen because we were happy about it. It was because we knew that we needed to be able to fund our budget. So if we're having to adjust revenues, which is not even part of the conversation right now, we're not in budget season anymore. But if we're having to adjust revenues, or we're having to find money in other places, which I'm open to creative solutions on where to find money in the budget somewhere to fund positions, because I'm hearing that there's other positions that need to be added because people are drowning. Please understand that we have to think about the disasters that may come and planning for that on the front end, and figure out a way to spend money that we have as opposed to spending money that we don't have. Please do not spend money that you're not willing to fund on the back end. That's my request. And Mr. Director Miller knows that when he asked for this position during budget season, I did not vote in favor of it, not because I didn't believe that he needed it, but because I believed that the commission would not find a way to fund it. Needs were there. Director Miller, I understand the work that you put in. I know how much comp time you do. I know that you're overwhelmed. The problem is I didn't believe that we had a commission that would be willing to fund the needs of the county, so we had to triage. That's where we are. And you know, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to shut my mouth before I say too much. But at the end of the day, we have needs in the county that we continue to nitpick and cut budget and cut line items and decrease certain things. And now disasters happen, and all along we knew it was going to happen. We just chose to, I'm going to use that phrase, kick that can. So as you know, I ain't gonna say I told y'all so. And Director Miller ain't going to either. But the fact is that we got by skating through, just generating enough revenue to make our county operate. Now a disaster came, and we're having to try to fix that. So that's my piece on that. And yes, if we want to make a recommendation to study adding a position to EMA, you can do that here, and we can take it up in budget committee. Of course, it won't be heard unless it's an out of order resolution for the October meeting. It won't be heard in the October meeting unless we run it as an out of order resolution.
Well, that's what I was wanting to know. As a budget, I know we got to reorganize the budget committee, but as budget chair from last year, it didn't really matter which committee it came out of. It just,
No, it doesn't. Because it's a your committees are nothing more than a recommendation anyway. The final decisions are made by the full commission. So unless it gets referred from budget over to personnel, I think you could probably send it straight to budget.
does this committee want to take action on Director Miller's request right now? Or?
I make a motion that we send it to the budget committee for consideration. I'll stop with that.
I second it.
You got a motion by Commissioner Gibson, second by Commissioner Kern. All in favor? Open for discussion.
I respectfully ask that we send that out of order, and the reason being is I know the needs now. In 30 plus days, we're gonna be at 45 days post-disaster. Plus, I'm gonna have the problem of trying to spool this person up to get them any training at all on what is going on with some of this money, plus absorbing it myself.
Can you remind me of what the cost for that would be? I know you gave us some estimates.
It was pay scale 10 to start with. We'd have to get with Eric on that, but mine's an 11. But I just want to throw that out there because I know we're going to pass up opportunities if we don't have anything at all, and I can't guarantee anything with the help. But that's where we're at. I gave you the split of the figures on what it looks like coming in the pipe, but I don't know how all that's going to gonna work.
But you can have that ready for Monday.
No way. The
Well,
state,
the highway department in on that request.
the
So we
state,
need to be on the ground.
the state doesn't have that ready as well. I mean, it's not even, the state doesn't have exactly all the terms of that down yet.
Mr. Miller, if you could hire somebody immediately,
Mm-hmm.
could you find someone that's trained to be able to do the work that you say you have to do now?
If we pay them correctly,
Okay.
we gotta get the pay to where I can harvest from somewhere else.
That was one employee director.
Correct. I can do with one employee but we're gonna have to address this radio thing at some point if we continue that. The way some counties do that, they do that with a split with a sheriff's office employee. They assign a sheriff's office employee to EMA to take care of the radios. That's done like that in Blount County. Then they do a 50-50 payment for that employee. That employee in Blount is a data person. He takes care of a lot of routers and radios and stuff like that. So there is options we can pursue on that radio side.
Would this new position require a vehicle also?
We have we have another pickup that's in good shape that we've just purchased. I think I will be able to upfit it for cheaper than what I initially thought. So that's gonna give us the ability to move that money over for another used vehicle if we choose to do so. I think I can absorb that in my budget again if we decide to replace the fourth vehicle. Obviously, if we hire somebody, they've gotta have a dependable vehicle, but we have that now. But we will need that'll cause the need to replace the fourth vehicle, which I think I can do through grant funding and absorb in my budget. Which is how we did this vehicle.
I was gonna say, if we send this recommendation on to the budget committee, is that something that then we could consider discussing it on Monday and decide at that point if we're gonna do it as out of order or how we might proceed with it?
Yes,
We could add just a new business on Monday.
Yes, sir, we could. We could send, as long as someone makes a motion to suspend the rules and it passes by a simple majority, it can be heard. Assuming that it will pass, a motion to suspend the rules, so yes. And, yeah, so that's how that would work.
I'm not attempting to put this committee in a bad position at all, but I'm in a bad position. Just with where we're at and knowing what's gonna be processed. That's why I'm asking for it to be processed as quickly as possible.
Can we include road superintendents also in this one at the same time?
Yes, we can. It probably needs to be a separate motion. So I think let's dispose of this motion, and then if you want to make that, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that'd be.
No, that's what I do want to say, since we've already got that motion on the floor, once we settle in, we can put your name on that other motion to include the highway department's request.
Should be able just to amend it to add it.
If you want to amend it, we can amend it.
That's what I'd like to do,
Do I have a second to the amendment?
to include the road superintendent's request.
I'll second that.
And second by Commissioner Font. So the motion now on the floor as amended would be to send Director Miller's request for a full-time personnel to the budget committee along with Director Jones's request for 10 temporary personnel.
And that 10 personnel that we discussed, I'm sorry to kind of get this off chance, that was what would be reimbursed at 100%? Is that correct? For 30 days or something, there's some time stipulations on that?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
if I have those 10 people for 2 months, I'm hoping I could get the majority of them cleaned up.
Okay.
And on that amendment, it probably, when it goes before the budget committee, because you're talking about one full-time position on a pay scale compared to 10 temporary positions, so we may end up splitting it anyway, but we can do that in budget committee.
Good.
Commissioner Clance, were you the second on that?
I did.
Okay.
And the reimbursements, you can't put that in bank. That could be 2 years to 5 years down the road before it comes back to the county. And if all the paperwork's in order and everything works as it should be reimbursed 100%.
I think for the budget committee, make sure both of your all departments have a number that you're gonna be requesting when it comes to budget committee meeting Monday.
As far as monetary, as far as money, okay.
Yeah, so. Any further discussion on the amendment? Alright, so voting on the amendment now. Ms. Davis, will you call roll on the amendment?
Tom Kern.
Yes.
Danny Elvis.
Yes.
John Gibson.
Yes.
Chad Britton.
Yes.
Jason Roach.
Yes.
Robbie Palmer.
Yes.
And Larry Quantz.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
Alright, now we're back to the, motion as amended by Commissioner Gibson to send Director Millard and Director Jones's request for the personnel, 1 full-time to EMA and 10 temporary to the road department, to the budget committee. Any further discussion on that motion? Yeah.
Let me speak a minute on that, please. I teach with the Rescue College for Tennessee Association of Rescue Squads. I travel all over this state. I travel to about any state that touches this state. And I see in a lot of counties where their EMAs have the proper staffing, that they actually help out that county by getting grant funding for all their volunteer and other organizations. If we don't fulfill this position as a taxpayer, we're gonna miss out on losing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars down the road. Because this will require, as Jamie said, a full-time person to do this. And that's gonna be what their dedication is gonna be. And I think when Commissioner Roach spoke about the way to pay for it, sometimes you gotta bite the bullet a little bit and spend a little bit up front to gain all this extra on the end. And I think this will help our county and our citizens of this county in the long future. And it will help ease some of that funding problems that the county commission faces. We may not see it right off the bat, but we will eventually see the progress and the help that this gets to us.
Thank you. Of course.
You said 1 or 2 for the game.
There's one, and Commissioner, I would just call for question. We'll go ahead and vote on this motion. Ms. Davis, will you call roll?
Robbie Palmer.
Yes.
Chad Britton.
Yes.
Larry Quantz.
Yes.
Danny Elvis.
Yes.
John Gibson.
Yes.
Tom Kern.
Yes.
And Jason Roach.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
We adjourn. On behalf of the Public Safety Committee and the County Commission, I want to thank every organization here and, for working together during this disaster. I know a lot of times there's been issues in the past where everybody just looked at the name on the shirt instead of looking at the county we serve. And I want to thank everybody for working together, whether it be, from just lending a staff member to do this or a piece of equipment. This is why I think this committee wanted to stress the importance of having good working relationship and a well-funded emergency response team within the county. And that includes the highway department. I know y'all are not typically classified as emergency response, but you keep the roads clear as best you can. And I'm proud of what we've seen our county come together as, lending a helping hand to other counties in need. We may be in the very position one day we may need their help. So I just want to thank every one of you all for working together, no questions asked, and not worrying about the individual organization, thinking about the whole county as a whole instead. So thank you all.
There's so many people behind the scenes we don't even think about there too.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example of that. The water system here was 8 feet from running out of water. But those guys were very important that were making those decisions and those phone calls. But that's something that happens behind the scenes, and a lot of times, and like I said, they're not typically an emergency responder, but in that scenario, that was an emergent decision that had to be made. Everybody, utility wise and public safety and responders and public, everybody worked well together.
All right, do I have a motion for
So moved.
motion made, second by Commissioner